So my next question to you, how the granting of rights of women would lead to development of nations?
All right. Well, I think the simplest way we can understand this is to realize that life walks on two legs, the male and the female. Life is not complete without either. Now, if somebody is sitting in a chair, this principle may not sound very exciting. But the moment you have somewhere to reach, then you will realize that hobbling on one leg is not an advantage. But unfortunately, over a long period of time, over millennia, we have created a male-dominated culture, male-dominated worldview, male-dominated families also. As a result, we think that women are inferior creatures. In fact, even Greek philosophy believed it. It's only about 200 years ago that these ideas began to change. Now, it is certainly an unwise thing to keep 50% of the population backward in any respect. But more than anything else, let me look at the dynamics of life. Life, in my opinion, is designed on the principle of partnership. Now, you try to do something all by yourself. For example, look at this situation. This handsome young man's name is Naveen, right? Now, without him, how can this interview take place, right? So, life is a matter of partnership. You can immediately see this. Now, life in general is structured more fundamentally on the male-female partnership between man and woman. For example, the principle of life, the vital principle of life is rooted in the relationship between man and woman. Only then a new life comes up. So if this is the logic of life and no one can question it, then it makes sense that man-woman relationships are built on a platform of equality. Unfortunately, this was not realized, certainly not aimed at for a very, very long time. And because of various cultural developments in which science and technology did play a part, because technology has a leveling influence that influences also the status of women in a society. For example, if you have, I'm using a bad example, if you have two sports cars driven by one by a man, one by a woman, it doesn't make much difference whether it is male or female. What makes a difference is the quality of the vehicle. So technology sort of irons out these differences. Education irons out differences. Economic development does it. So because of these various things, because of cultural development, we have now reached a stage when men have to grudgingly realize that women are not inferior to them. On the other hand, the reality now stares us in the face, and men wake up. The reality stares you in the face that women are superior to men. And that's the gift of nature, because women are the carriers of life. Historically and culturally, men specialized in killing. The greatest act of man is war making, which is nothing but killing, taking life. Women have been blessed by nature to be carriers of life. And certainly, make no doubt about it, those who carry life are far superior to those who are merchants of death. And this has all kinds of cascading effects, that is, effects that flow over and fall on other areas of life. For example, if you have to look after a house all by yourself as a man, then you will know that you're not up to it. Now, we say, for example, that women can multitask, men cannot. It's true. Of course, now there is a line of thought that multitasking is not such a good idea, because then you will never become an expert in anything. But that's the argument for argument's sake. I think it's a great thing to be able to multitask. So women are now surging ahead in intellectual matters. I can give you statistics, mind-boggling statistics, to prove the sudden effervescence of the female genius. And to give you just one indication, if I take 100 best schools in Delhi, the city I'm familiar with, 100 out of 100 will be headed by women. in education. I come from a college where practically every list in the results was dominated by girl students. You look at publishing, for example. If 10 manuscripts are submitted to a publisher in Delhi, 8 out of 10 will be by women. So in intellectual matters, in cultural matters, in educational matters, and now even in those domains of experience which traditionally used to be dominated by men, say engineering, medicine, law, all this is being swamped by women. And I am someone who hails that development. And I believe that injustice was done to women over a long period of time. And now that those fetters are broken and a level playing field is available to women, they are very excited about it and they excel in whatever they assume responsibility. And I think that's something that, over which we all have to rejoice. So the traditional handicap's gone, level playing field, now there is a new inequality. Previously it was the inequality of social economic advantage. Now it is the inequality of intellectual, creative advantage, which is definitely veering to the side of women. And this is something that I feel very happy about.
So when it comes to the development of nations, could you expound on that?
Well, development of nations, now you look at the leaders of the world. See, compared to the situation that was obtained 25 years ago, more women are at the helms of affairs than was the case, say, 25 years ago. Now, in India, of course, we have now fallen into this macho idea of national leadership and the rest of it. I believe that that is not an improvement on the genial, gentle qualities that women can bring to bear on governance, which lends itself more readily to good governance than this idea of muscle flexing, power emitting style of leadership. So whatever is genial, whatever is good, whatever is beautiful, whatever is conducive to human development and fulfillment must carry the charm of the feminine principle. I'm very convinced about it. And I would also say this could shock some of our viewers. I would say that a man cannot be fully himself unless he also has the heart of a woman. This polarization between the male and the female is neither spiritually, nor psychologically, nor philosophically desirable. Because we are all an admixture of two, admixture of both. And it's only a matter of relative balance, actually. So women need courage, women need confidence, women need leadership qualities, men need the gentle qualities of life. When we renounce the gentler aspects of being male, then we become distorted and we begin to think that hurting others is a matter of our ability, or dominating others and suppressing others is the only way to prove my superiority. All these are completely unhelpful. They are destructive of one's own merit and one's own dignity. So we need a more balanced, blended idea of life within which, as I said at the beginning, the operating principle will not be the domination of one by the other, but rather a happy, creative partnership between the male and the female, which brings out the best from both. I think that's the kind of healthy society I would commend to all.
We are starting to see the long-term effects of some of the women empowerment movements that we say, and isn't it affecting families all across the world?
Yeah. Now, I don't think there is anything specifically wrong about empowering women. Though I have a philosophical quarrel with the idea of empowering, because the root is power. I don't think power is the basic element of life. Now, I think the problem here is a problem that is a hangover from the past, which is that because for millennia human consciousness has been dominated by the male as the norm. When this period of, say, women's liberation came about, a great mistake was embraced in the sense that women began to think that their liberation and their empowerment means that they behave like men. This is the problem. Now, actually, women's liberation should mean women coming more and more fully into the richness and the greatness of being women, as fully, as empoweringly as possible. Women becoming second-class men is an aberration. I wouldn't commend that to anyone. Just as men becoming second-rate women, as called effeminate men, that's not an achievement, it's an aberration. The same thing applies to the other side also. So this idea of imitating one another, women roaming around imitating men, I think is an insult to the male principle. Nobody should do that. What we should do is, well, the fact remains that historically I was not allowed as a woman to be fully myself. My opportunities, my avenues for development were blocked. But now those blockages are gone. I'm going to claim fully those opportunities. I'm going to develop myself, and I'm going to be a source of enrichment to the world of male-female relationship, man-woman relationship, with all the life principles attached to it, by being richly female, not imitatingly male. And there's no point in having a male and a shadow male in a relationship. It's an aberration. It will only produce tension, destruction, and will undermine the cohesiveness of the society, and that is what you're referring to. The problem is not with the liberation of women. It is that the idea of liberation and its content or its scope has been misunderstood.
I accept that. It's a very valid definition. I've not really had the opportunity to think about it in those terms. And yet, it is important to also consider that when great changes happen, there also tends to be casualties. And oftentimes, children and the younger generation, growing children are the casualties in this power struggle, so to speak. How would you just address this issue?
Yeah, I quite agree with you that periods of change are also periods of trauma. There will be suffering attached, and that I don't think there is a way out of that. I mean, there's no way a radical change can be effected without some tremors happening. But what can be done though is that changes can be strategized. That is, if you are a responsible person in terms of social engineering, you understand the change that you want to bring about. And then you map the consequences and the kinds of impact. And therefore, you prepare to handle those problems. But nothing of the sort was happened in this case because there was not a single source, a single driver of this change. People from all over the world in different societies were looking at it, protesting against it, putting various resources in place, arguing it. I mean, so it's a kind of half-assed movement. There's no centralized movement which drove this whole idea of women's empowerment and therefore also making provisions to meet the possible harmful effects of this. So I can understand that. But what is important is not to therefore wind up this process, but to engage more meaningfully and responsibly the social task of meeting the consequences more responsibly. And I think a lot of education must go into it. For example, if from a relationship children are born, there's no way, in my opinion, I could sound old-fashioned on this, there's no way a man and a woman can walk out on this. Because you have voluntarily accepted responsibility for a life or two lives, right? And there is nothing in the world that can change it. You cannot change your children, just as children cannot change their parents. So the relationship between parents and children is once and for all. And for anything in the world, or to let anything in the world affect it or undermine it, I think is horribly irresponsible. And I think no human being with a heart can ever even think of doing it. I know it is happening. I mean, the divorce rates are increasing by leaps and bounds, and marriage courts are now overflowing. All that's fine. But it's because people have not been educated enough to understand the basics of life. And I think religions are failing in this respect. I mean, this is a task that should fall squarely into the domain of religions. Why is it that the great religions that we have, its custodians, are doing nothing to address any of these emergent agonies of life? I mean, they are into a spell of escapism, they are into all kinds of other excitements, but turning a blind eye to human suffering and the many huge emerging needs of human life, whether it is in family, whether it is in society, whether it is in the larger political domain. The project of religion has disowned life. I think that's a far more serious issue than feminism or anything else. So this irresponsibility must be addressed, without which we will not make any significant progress towards ameliorating these accumulating human tragedies and the suffering that goes with it.
Thank you, sir.